My goal right now is that by the end of this video, you're going to be willing to give suspenders a try. Now, not only if we all began to wear suspenders would we increase the net masculinity of the American public, but we would decrease a lot of the problems that you have on an average workday in construction when it's hot and you've got a belt dragging your pants down around your knees and you're just sick and tired of always looking like a plumber when you bend over to get your work done. Now, before you tune me out and decide this is one more silly YouTube video you don't have time to watch, I want to tell you that when I made the switch at about age 36 from wearing a belt, this one actually, to wearing suspenders just like these, it really increased my comfort, and I want to assert that it increased my productivity in construction. If you are a devoted wearer of belts, as almost everybody is, I want you to understand that this is a belt that I wore 80% of the time from age 17 to age about 36. It's got some miles on it. My folks got this for me in Jacob Lake, Arizona when I was 16, and they dropped me off at a band camp in Lake Tahoe. I got the belt itself the following year in Sacramento. I used to play music at the Sacramento Dixieland Jazz Jubilee on Labor Day weekends, and I got this belt there and I wore it a lot. I loved it. Now, I wore it at a little different setting than I do now. I can get within 2 clicks, which is not bad, but I never really resented the fact until I got just a little older that it made my hips sore. I mean, by the time you put a belt on your Levi's and then put, your tool belt around your waist and you work in Las Vegas at 115 or 18 degrees and it's hot and you're wet and you're salty, and pretty soon that chafing on your hips becomes a real problem. By the time I moved back to Oregon and started logging again, I realized that suspenders were going to decrease the pain I felt when I was working construction. Let me tell you why. Now let me throw this down. I still wear belts. I just don't wear them to work because belts are less complicated. I mean, there is just not much to hitting those belt loops when you go around and buckling up and out the door. And bathroom visits are quicker and less complicated by far, and sometimes that's important when it's just a belt that you've got to deal with. But aside from that, in the world of work, particularly carpentry and construction, where bags are involved, I got to tell you that the suspenders are just another tool. My first step into suspenders at work was with this set of bags and just a set of suspenders on the bags. In fact, you can see here the evidence that the suspender on the left front, took a lot of abuse. It was a clip-on. I don't have them anymore. But, that's what it chewed up that side on the front, and it chewed up this side on the front, and on the back it wasn't so much. I don't know why, but the fact is they were working, and that work was taking pressure off of my hips. I have been told, and I have no trouble believing, that over time that continual pressure on your hip bones, on the skin against your hip bones with a tool belt or just the belt around your pants will cause nerve damage there. Now, I don't know about that, but the fact is, by the end of the day, it hurts. This helped. And so for a long time it was, belts on the bags. Moved back to Oregon. In Oregon, when you're logging, a belt is just not an option for a lot of reasons. And so I started wearing suspenders when I was logging with my dad, and I started wearing my Carhartt double front logger dungarees, which have been changed and I don't wear them anymore. But that made suspenders, and not clip-on suspenders, but the real suspenders with the leather attachment to the bachelor buttons, a structural connection, by the way, it just is not coming off. That made suspenders something I was putting on a lot. And what that did was, when I was going back and forth between logging and construction, it was no time before I realized I could lose the suspenders on the bags and keep the suspenders on the pants. All right, now the immediate practical benefit to suspenders on your pants is your shirt doesn't come untucked. It doesn't come untucked in the back. The waist of your pants stays where the waist belongs, and while this may be bad news for plumbers, for the rest of us, it's handy to keep your pants up where they go. All right, so that's item 1. Item 2 is you can wear a larger pant size around the waist and just reduce pressure all the way around. Now, sad to say, I think I need to increase that dimension just a little bit, but in general, you're not relying on snugness on your hips to keep your pants up. You're relying on your shoulders, which are much more suited for the operation than your hip bones ever were. That's the big deal. Now, you have been asking for years, what brand? These are Welch's Welch Suspenders. And they are strong and they're reliable and the product is good. The only complaint I have, and I don't know if there's a thing they can do about it, is they fade. They go from black to brown pretty fast. You would expect that they would stretch. This is elastic. And so that's where the clip was set for the first, I don't know, year or year and a half on this set. And this is where the clip was set for the last period of time before my wife insisted that I get a fresh pair. So Welch's, I have no complaint. Now, if you're going into a logging supply store or some other place where working people get the tools they need that has suspenders, pay attention, because this is a Y-back set of suspenders. Thus the name. You can also get them that are an X-back. That is, this strap that is over your right shoulder proceeds down to the button on the left side. This strap that's over your left shoulder proceeds down, creating an X configuration to the other button. Now they work fine. I just like this better. I can't tell you exactly why, I just do. Now, also think this, that get suspenders that are a little longer in overall length rather than shorter in overall length, because you can always make up the difference with a clip, and when they are longer, it's a longer distance from the Y to the attachment, which means the Y happens further up your back, closer to your neck, and keeps the suspenders from tending to slip off your shoulders. It can be a big deal. Now there's a couple obstacles to somebody thinking they might like to try suspenders. And the first one is, if you don't already have pants that have bachelor buttons, I don't know why they would be called bachelor buttons, because they just increase your sex appeal and good looks. But if you don't have pants with the bachelor buttons, well, you're thinking, I don't want to buy a new wardrobe just so I can wear suspenders. Well, you can get them that clip on, but they're not the same. So, dive in, right? Or talk to somebody or go to a secondhand store or whatever. But that's really the only rational objection to not trying them. And at the end of this video, whenever that happens, if you're thinking you might want to try it, leave a comment. Talk about it, whatever the obstacles are in your community. If you just can't find them, but we all have Amazon, right? So yes, you can find them. And I've changed my allegiance on the pant to Key, K-E-Y, pants. They work great. But leave a comment about if and when and what it's been like for you. But I want to wrap this up with something that is, it's funny. And that's all it is funny. The only piece of sartorial advice my dad ever gave me, and by that I mean the only thing he ever said about fashion, was one day as a young man, I was going to church, and I had gotten a pair of black clip-on suspenders because, suspenders look cool, right? And I had put them on with my black dress belt and suspenders, right? And I came out and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to church." He says, "You're not going wearing a belt and suspenders, are you? That's dumb." And I thought, well, there is some redundancy there, isn't there? And so what that probably means is one or the other, either the belt or the suspenders, because of either A, a lack of security, or B, some kind of vanity, or something. So, sorry guys, if you're a belt and suspender guy, which is a wonderful metaphor for redundancy and safety and making sure that your building design is gonna work no matter what, if you're a belt and suspender guy, think twice, because people pass judgments when you walk in a room holding your pants up twice. So, as good luck would have it, I'm joined here today by a friend of mine, Brady Winder, who is also, he comes and films for us sometimes. He helps Nate out and stands behind the camera, and he has something to talk about as far as his personal experience with belts and nerve damage.
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, I spent an entire weekend, I was telling you, detailing an engine. I pulled the engine and I spent about 3 or 4 days crouched over like this on the concrete, and my belt was pinching my hips, and I wasn't noticing. I was sucked into the engine, And at the end of the weekend, I was changing my pants and I realized I couldn't feel the side of my leg.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? At the end of the weekend, he couldn't feel the side of his leg.
It was numb. It was numb from about halfway down my calf all the way up to my hip, and it was numb to the touch, and it really spooked me. And so I went to the doctor that week and I said, what what is going on. I couldn't even put 2 and 2 together. And I said, here's what I've done the past week. It doesn't make any sense. Is it my sciatic nerve? He says, no, it's not. You know, I'm not a doctor. It's not medical advice, but it was a different nerve. The point is it crosses where my belt crosses. And he said, there's 3 people that I see with this problem. There's really skinny guys like yourself, where your hip bones stick out further than your gut. Really overweight guys who cinch their belt down really tight, and then girls in yoga pants. Well, I'm not girl in yoga pants, and I'm not the really heavy set guy. And so he said, just unclip your belt or get a different belt. So I ended up getting a stretchy belt. Scott probably disagrees with, but it works for me. And he said, unclip it if you're driving or you're in that position for a while.
So a stretchy belt is great, guys, but suspenders are really great. So, and you know, Brady, I mean, he's a buck 40. Are you a buck 40?
No,
okay.
Thank you though.
All right. So it doesn't matter. But I'll tell you this: there's a 4th group that the doctor wasn't hip to. That was just good luck right there. But it's construction workers, it's carpenters, because those bags will pinch you off. So anyhow, you are, my friends, out of reasons to not give suspenders a try. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.